how do you communicate with females without transgressing any of your rights and not falling for the shaitan? For example, if I want to help my friend by talking to his sister. The Prophet ﷺ, he clearly stated to shield ourselves from any type of mixing between men and women unless it's a necessity. And we have to really reflect upon the commands of how the Prophet ﷺ commanded, what did he say, and how the Sahaba radiallahu anhum applied it. This deen has been applied perfectly in the first generations. The Sahaba, the Tabi'een, the Tabi'een. So it's very important in every matter that we learn in our deen, we have to know how did they apply it, because their application is an example for us to follow. The Prophet ﷺ, when he said, "Inna dunya hulwatun khadiran," this hadith in Sahih Muslim, this dunya is sweet and green. وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ مُسْتَخْلِفُكُمْ فِيهَا. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mustakhlifukum. That means He would entrust you, make you inherit from one another. You go from one generation to the other, and He entrusted you with whatever is in this world. فَيَنْظُرْ كَيْفَ تَعْمَلُونَ. He would see subhanahu wa ta'ala how you act upon, based on what you have been entrusted with. Then the Prophet ﷺ, he said, فَاتَّقُوا الدُّنْيَا وَاتَّقُوا النِّسَاء. Shield yourself from the dunya, from the dunya that would take you away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَاتَّقُوا النِّسَاء. And shield yourself from the women. فَإِنَّ أَوَّلَ فِتْنَةِ بَنِي إِسْرَائِيل كَانَتْ فِي النِّسَاء. The first fitna to the people of Bani Israel was in women. When it says اتقوا الدنيا, first of all, does it mean stay away from the dunya? We're living in the dunya. We're living in this world. How can you stay away from it? Right? It means stay away from what's forbidden for you, that will take you away from the purpose of your life. And what does it mean for وَاتَّقُوا النِّسَاء? Stay away from women? That means stay away from your mother? Stay away from your sister? Of course not. Stay away from your wife? Of course not. We are commanded to be kind to the women. وَاسْتَوْصُوا بِالنِّسَاءِ خَيْرًا. The man has been addressed to take care of the women and to be kind to them. So what is meant by وَاتَّقُوا النِّسَاء is to shield yourself from what's forbidden. So the relationships that is between men and women, they're not mahram to one another. They're strangers to one another. Therefore, they have to, this is the original ruling. They're away from one another. Right? And there, the verses in the Quran, hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created men and women in such a way. And this is one of the biggest fitna or a trial that a person can go through in this life. And that's why the deen of Islam governed these relationships. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded us to lower the gaze. And وَإِذَا سَأَلْتُمُهُنَّ مَتَاعًا فَاسْأَلُوهُنَّ مِنْ وَرَاءِ حِجَابٍ. If you ask them for anything, for a reason, ask them from behind a curtain, from behind a veil. So it's only permissible if there's a reason, buying and selling or something of benefit, and it's with lowering the gaze from behind the curtain, or if people are, if the same thing is observed when people lower their gaze, right, and without having khalwa, without being together alone, and taking all the means to protect oneself from disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So unless if there is a need, right, then if these things are observed, and we have to be careful with the steps of the shaitan, because the shaitan doesn't leave people alone. And he starts with what's permissible and he leads them to what's haram. Right? So for example, if the question is, if I want to help my friend by talking to his sister, is it necessarily important for you to talk to his sister if you want to help him? Right? And what type of level of talking does that make the relationship, build the relationship? Right? And how should I do if for work, for example, if we're working together as administrators for a program? If you're at work and there are females at work, then you treat them nicely, you talk to them with whatever is work related. Right? So with lowering the gaze, with making the matter just precise to what is necessarily needed for work, and you work on yourself to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and things like this. And to be patient with the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But again, it's once you start being close, there's a fitna here. So you have to protect yourself by observing these commands of Allah. The Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they used to buy and sell and they used to go to the market and things like this. But by observing these conditions and these etiquettes and not to transgress the limits. So, and the same thing when people are in a gathering. Are they lowering their gaze? Are they not speaking soft to one another? Are they speaking to the point and the purpose of what they're talking about? And they're observing the hijab, or things are loose. And the same thing with the issue of text messaging and communicating and things like this. We have to understand there are steps of shaitan. So people should stay away from this unless it's necessary. And anybody can praise oneself and say, I'm safe or this and that, but we are human beings. So to whatever is the level of necessity, while observing the deen of Allah and the commands of Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us inshaAllah. Allah musta'an.